What's up, everybody? So this ramble, I got the idea from Warhammer Previews 3, Revenge of the Preview, which was a great name, because we got Saul Tarvitz model finally. He's had rules since forever from Forge Roll for the Horus Heresy, but we finally have his model, and it's a very cool looking model, so I want to touch on that real quick, and then I want to spend the rest of this ramble talking about, hopefully not too long-winded, on why I would consider Saul Tarvitz the hero of heroes and immensely important in the Horus Heresy fluff. Because if you're new, he may be overshadowed by a lot more grandiose characters and a lot more of the later stages of the Horus Heresy, pivotal battles and the like. But it all boils down to Saul Tarvitz, really. So firstly, his model looks great. I love the detail on the model. It's very Emperor's Children. It's very classic Emperor's Children. By that I mean very loyalist Emperor's Children. It is not been debased or anything like that. It is very ornate, very much what you would expect from that legion. And it looks great. I love the detail on his arms and on his legs. And they did a very good job with the facial detail. I'm a fan of helmeted models through and through. But Forge Roll's always had nice facial detail, and they've been getting better and better, and Saul Tarvitz has a really well done face and hair setup. Also, key point, his little golden, forehead plate is still present. This was something we saw way back in the Horus Heresy card game art that is still present to this day, further showcasing how the Horus Heresy card game art really is a foundationary piece upon which many things are based off of in the Horus Heresy time frame. Anyways, with all that said, I'm looking forward to seeing a 360 of the model to see all the detail. It's very cool looking. Now, GW did tell us that Saul Tarvitz is one of the first, and in fact the first named Space Marine character from the Horus Heresy time frame. Way back in 1988 is when he was named, and during the Horus Heresy time period, and that's pretty cool. So I do like that they told us that, because I didn't realize just how long he's had his name, you could say, and that he's one of the first. So that's pretty cool. With that said, they did do a later posting giving us a little fluff blurb around the Eisenstein and Isfin 3 that's very different from how the fluff is today. Don't worry about that. They're showing it to us because it is very different, and they're not saying that this is the way now. It's not. But I'm going to focus on how the fluff is with Isfin 3 and the Eisenstein and everything, and why Saul Tarvitz is the hero of heroes, as we know him to be, you could say. Because if you're new, again, like I mentioned already, you may, or newer to the Horus Heresy, you may have Saul Tarvitz eclipsed by Garvio Loken or Raldoran or other characters and other big battles and situations. But it all starts at Isfin 3, right? The Isfin system was brought into compliance decades earlier. But, shortly after Horus being named War Master, and shortly after his machinations for power and he became corrupted and turned to chaos, Isfin 3 rebelled as a system. Now, was this done deliberately by the Chaos Gods to give him a ground to do things in secret? Who knows? The point is, the Isfin system rebelled. Horus is War Master. Horus wants to make an example, at least to all the loyalists, the rest of the Imperium at large. This is what they are thinking. Because being War Master doesn't mean you are unquestioned 100%, but it does mean you got a lot of leeway in what you're doing. So he sees this opportunity, knowing full well that nobody would question him marshaling 4 legions to this one system. Clearly, he's doing a show of force to crush these upstarts and send a message to the rest of the galaxy. Remember, the Great Crusade is drawing to a close. So taking that many assets into one area is not that big of a deal as it would have been in the beginning of the Great Crusade. And everybody feels like, yes, the logical thing is he's making a show of force. This makes a lot of sense. He is newly christened War Master. He has to set examples, and nobody questions it. So, with that said, the campaign kind of goes on as normal. They do crush the rebellion and drive it to Isfin 3, the seat of power, and they are about to, wage the final blow. And this sees a huge, you could say, army composition, a huge army list, if you will, is drawn for this battle by Horus. The total number of Space Marines that would be attacking in the siege of Isfin 3 is roughly 100,000 plus. Huge number. And Saul Tarvitz started feeling things were off. He noticed a shift in his legion in years prior leading up to this that made him unsettled. He noticed that the pride and ego of his fellow Emperor's children were kind of going to an extreme over time. He never had much ambition to be anything more than a captain of a company, which he is. So I guess you could say due to his being, he was kind of immune to it to a degree. Plus he's loyal to the Emperor, I guess, through and through. But anyways, so that plus just the weird roll call of battle for this attack, units that are going together or being separated to take specific elements where they normally wouldn't have been, it all rubbed him very wrong. The fact that Lord Commander Eidolon would not be leading the battle personally, despite being something for his prestige to do for the glory, and he's a glory hog, also made him very suspicious. So he was able to convince the ancient Rylanor, something like that, I forget how to pronounce it, to take his place. And it's allowed and agreed, and Saul Tarvitz is able to further investigate more. And it's during this campaign unfolding in Isfin 3 that he figures out the truth. Now, how far he figured it out, did he figure out Horus was going to rebel against the Emperor and lead a campaign to crush Terra and had more than 4 legions? Probably not that far, but he definitely figured out Horus's betrayal to the Imperium and the Emperor. And he had to warn the Astartes on the ground, because he discovered that very soon they would be doing a bombardment consisting of traditional lance weaponry and devastating ordnance, as well as the dreaded Life Eater virus. So he commandeered a Thunderhawk and made speed to the planet to warn them. In doing so, it made him pass close by the frigate Eisenstein that was under the command of the Death Guard Captain Nathaniel Garreau. As fate would have it, they are very close. They are honor brothers. They shed blood together on a particularly dire battlefield, and they trust each other implicitly. They are as close as brothers can get. And Saul Tarvitz is currently, hailing him and explaining to him the situation. At the same time, Eidolon is commanding him to destroy Saul Tarvitz, basically. And this is a lot to take in. He's reeling from the implications of one traitor to another. Is it one traitor? Is it a slew of traitors? What's going on? Who's at fault? Who is telling me the truth? And he sides with Saul Tarvitz because he has no reason to not trust him. He trusts him with his life because of that close bond of brotherhood. He trusts Saul Tarvitz, pretends to destroy the Thunderhawk by blowing up the support craft that are close behind and saying everything was engulfed in the explosion. And then, as you know, in Book 4, Flight of the Eisenstein, Nathaniel Garreau takes his forces and the frigate and successfully escapes the system and makes all speed toward Terra despite being a damaged ship and everything. They do this to bring warning to the Emperor, to take basically Tarvitz's warning and bring it to the Emperor on Terra. And, well, Malkador specifically, who gets it, but we know it gets to the Emperor. That whole thing happens because of Saul Tarvitz. Saul Tarvitz gets to the planet side moments before the bombardment begins, and even though he only gets the Astartes on the ground moments of prep time and moments of advanced warning, they are Astartes, and that is enough to save over 75% of them. So if we're just going to use the 100,000 as a benchmark, we can say between 75 and 80,000 strong survive this devastating bombardment, much to the chagrin of Horus. This results in Amgron going into a berserk rage, leading his forces planetside, forcing Horus and the other legions to commit to a costly ground war. And costly it is. They thought they were going to be facing beleaguered survivors, shell-shocked and worn out and struggling to make any type of stand. Instead, they fought against a concerted defense effort led by Saul Tarvitz. And they repulse and damage and kill a lot of traitor Astartes. In fact, it probably would have been even more and took a bit longer time, but Lucius, who we know as an arch traitor now in 40k, was not thought to be the case and was actually planet side, but then betrays his fellow Astartes, and that allows for a massive push to happen and yada yada yada. But anyways, Saul Tarvitz and most all of the loyalists are killed at the end of the Isstvan III atrocity. But it allows the Eisenstein to make the Terra give warning and for them to have some breathing room of advance notice to mobilize, prep, and prepare. Rogaldorn has that much more time to prep the defenses of the palace, for example. So that's a huge win for the Loyalists right there from the get-go, because if it wasn't for Saul Tarvitz, this whole action on Isstvan III would have been a secret. Nobody would have known until it was far too late. On top of that, in the actual battle at Isstvan III, it's a lot. It's a lot of losses for obviously both sides, because the Loyalists are nearly wiped out. But the traitor forces take heavy casualties. It's actually something you could describe as a Pyrrhic victory for them. That's how bad their casualties were, because they're facing battle-hardened, angry Astartes survivors that have nothing to lose now. It's not an easy fight. They are capturing and repurposing damaged but serviceable tanks brought down to kill them to now kill the attackers and so on. So it becomes a big gamble, a big problem, requiring Titan level support on the traitor side to really break through today. But war material wise, plenty of vehicles and destroyer munitions spent, things that while can be replenished take time to replenish, and a lot of it was that went to the planet side was lost. And we have to remember, time is the huge thing that Horus lost. If things went Horus's way, he would have wrapped up a bombardment, finished the culling on board the fleets, and then those 4 legions, fully 100% committed to Horus's cause without anybody being the wiser, could then set out to strike devastating blows, completely unawares against the Imperium, probably resulting in a very different Horus Heresy. But instead, Horus is forced to spend over 2 months at Isstvan III, probably closer to 3+ months, you could say for sure, at Isstvan III to deal with this situation. That plus the Eisenstein lead to the Imperium forming a response team. Now, luckily for Horus, the exact extent of his treachery was not known, so 5 other legions are loyal to Horus that was not known. Those will be the ones that come in at the second wave at Isstvan V. But knowing all this, you now begin to think and hypothesize that perhaps Isstvan V was a plan B or C situation, right? A masterful stroke for Horus, but one that was born out of a necessity to kind of recoup some type of advantage in terms of momentum and power that he lost because of Isstvan III and the way it played out. So all of this because of Saul Tarvitz. Saul Tarvitz led the defenses on the ground until the end. Saul Tarvitz warned them so there would be those to lead and defend. And Saul Tarvitz warned his honored brother, who was able to make it to Terra, to give warning, would later go on to become a Knight Errant of Malcador. All of that because of Saul Tarvitz. And while yes, 3 months of time is a devastating blow as well, the traitor forces that attacked the Loyalists took casualties in the tens of thousands. So let's say 10,000 per legion present. That's 40,000 traitor Astartes lost that they were not accounting for. Now, 100,000 divided by 4 is 25,000 per legion. Those losses, because of the cull, are massive, yes, but they were expected. They were counted on, you could say, so they could move about unhindered and do what they had to do for Horus. The extra 10,000 per, just doing simple math, making it easier on ourselves, was not accounted for. That's strength loss that is not so easily replenished. We know it takes a lot of time for Astartes to become Astartes. So that's always a plus, a massive bonus on top of time loss and everything against Horus. So just some food for thought and things to consider. That's a very quick nitty-gritty rundown of Saul Tarvitz, the hero of heroes of the Horus Heresy, you could say. Cut down at the very beginning, but his actions, his sacrifice led to massive blows to Horus in ways that he would not have wanted. They weren't massive necessarily physical blows to his legion or himself personally, but they were bloody noses nonetheless in his campaign and bid for power. So important stuff for sure. Am I inflating Saul Tarvitz a bit in the mythos and making him sound more important than he is? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. That's up for personal debate and opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. Feel free to share yours in the comment section below. Thanks very much for tuning in. I think because I didn't focus too much on Isfin 3 and all that, I might talk a bit more about it in a future ramble. Who knows? But I just wanted to talk Saul Tarvitz a bit because the model just got me thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? He really is kind of the hero of heroes of the Horus Heresy on the loyalist side. So very important character, despite not getting that much screen time at all. Anyways, that's it. Thanks very much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy.